Welcome to our presentation. Our topic is NHL's power play percentage versus wins and losses by Andy, Sonia, and Matt.
First of all, first of all, we're going to look at the basics. There are 32 teams in the National Hockey League, linking variable. The power play percentage is the total number of power play goals divided by total number of power play opportunities. A power play is where the other team gets a penalty, so they lose a player to the penalty box. And now you have the one man advantage, hence you're on a power play. This was our dependent variable. Our independent variable includes the wins, strata 1, or losses, strata 2. We did not include teams over time, losses in our data. We used the data from 2023 to 2024 season up until January 11, 2024, when we collected our data.
Hypothesis. Before we collected our data, we thought that the higher power play percentage, which means you have taken charge of more opportunities on the ice, would mean the more wins you should have collected this season.
Next, we look at the histograms. So the first histogram we have is the wins. And when we look at this histogram, we see at the bottom are the number of wins, and on the side is the frequency, so how many teams had that number of wins. For example, there are 5 teams that had in between 25 and 30 wins. The next histogram is the losses histogram, and it's the same as the wins except for it's just the losses instead. So we have the buckets that have the number of losses in the bottom, and on the side we have the frequency. So how many teams had that number of losses? For example, there were 11 teams with between 15 and 20 losses.
Now we're going to look at the mean compression of histograms. The mean is used for normal distribution with few outliers, while the median is used for a skewed distribution to find the central tendency. In a stratum 1, the mean of wins is slightly lower than the median by zero point 0.1, which suggests a slight left skewed distribution. In a stratum 2, the mean of losers is slightly higher than the median by 0.66, which suggests a slightly right skewed distribution. In conclusion, based on the calculation, majority of teams would have less wins and more losses overall, as the mean of wins is below the median and mean of losses is above the median. Next, we're going to look at the standard deviation comparison of histograms. So the standard deviation of the wins is 4.5. This indicates lower variability in the number of wins. So data points for wins are less spread from the mean compared to losses. The standard deviation for losses was 5.1. This indicates higher variability in the number of losses. So data points for losses are more spread out from the mean. So the difference between the standard deviations are zero point 0.6. The standard deviation for losers is about zero point 0.6 larger than for wins. Although losers are more spread out, the difference is not extremely large. In conclusion, the data shows that losers have a greater degree of variability compared to wins, while losers are more spread out. The difference is relatively moderated, indicating some level of similarity is the spread in the spread of wins and losses.
Fox and whisker plot. There's one outlier in the loss section. We know this because the small dot on the right is not connected with the line. Since it is far off from the other data, this would indicate that it is an outlier because it doesn't directly correlate with the other data, and it would potentially skew the data due to its pulling the average and numbers higher. Due to the fact that one of the teams have 29 losses and only 9 wins, they have the most losses and the least amount of wins of any teams at the NHL at the moment. Due to having more losses than any teams, it will bring the average of the losses up and is therefore an outlier. The team with the second most losses still has 2 less than San Jose, making a San Jose's data different from the rest. Next off is strata plot. Stratum 1 has correlation coefficient at 0.46 and has moderately positive correlation. It seems like in this stratum, who scores a greater percentage of power play goals tends to experience a moderate increase in the number of wins. This suggests that there is a positive correlation between successes, power plays, and slight higher probability of winning games. Stratum 2. Correlation coefficient is negative 0.45, has moderately negative correlation. In this category, there exists a moderate negative correlation between the percentage of power play goals scored against the team and the number of losses they experience. This suggests that the teams that are more effective in producing power play goals tends to experience a relatively lower number of losses.
Now we're going to talk about why this information is important. So this topic could be considered important to society as plenty of North Americans watch hockey. So they may find this information interesting. It may change who they cheer for based on who seems to have the best chance for the Stanley Cup. It may also be important for those who gamble. If you watch sports, you will see that gambling is being heavily pushed and more people are participating in it. These estates will change who people bet on, how much they bet, and could result in huge wins or losses of money for individuals and or the gambling sites. People will use this information heavily when choosing a place to place their money somewhere. Some for it is extremely important. They have accurate data that will be considered helpful to them. This information is also the type of information that is very important in the sport world. There are tens of jobs that would require this in their daily life, so it is crucial to them.
Next, we're going to look at some of the careers that would find this information useful. So, some careers that would use this would be sports performance analysts, coaches and managers, sports announcers and show hosts, and even other teams in the league. So, sports performance analysts will use this because they may shift their area of work focus based on which part of your play is performing poorly. They will then work on that area that may be costing your team to improve that stat. Sports announcers will use this on the air when they have gaps to fill, when they want to explain why a team may be using a certain strategy, and to explain teams' performance levels. Other teams will use this when preparing to play one another, as they will notice how the other team plays and change and adjust their playing where it seems fit in order to win. Coaches and managers will use this information every day. More specifically, they will use the power play percentage to see if it is successful or not. Power play goals are what can make or break a team's chance of winning, as it is an amazing opportunity with an extra man on the ice to score a goal and get ahead. If the power play isn't working well, they will probably make changes to the lineup or strategy to help in hopes of increasing their power play percentage and hopefully, therefore, winning as well. And that's a basic summary of NHL power play percentages versus their wins and losses. Thanks for listening to our presentation.